Hello and welcome to the Sewing Studio. Today is the postcard block, which is for March. So I've made this little springtime scene because March for me is all about the daffodils and the sheep are now out in the fields, and in some places they're beginning to lamb already. So I think this is typical of spring. So I'm just going to remind you, this was January's block. And this was February's block, and this one is March. So I'm going to show you how we're going to make this. So the first thing we're going to need is a background square. And if you remember, I said to you that we were going to make these at 7 by 5, and then we can trim them down afterwards if you want to. So I've got my background piece of fabric, which I've already cut out, and this measures 7 inches by 5 inches. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do this sky. So I've got a piece of blue, which I've already got the bonder web on the back of, and that is the width of my postcard block. So that's 7 inches going that way. It's a little bit frayed at the top. I'm not going to worry about that too much because, as I say, they're all going to be trimmed down afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the back off of that and I'm just going to lay it down. And when I've got everything in the position that I want, then I'm going to take it over to the iron and press it all down in place. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to do the background. So the sky, the grass, and the flowers in the front. I'm just going to lay that there. Then the next one is this dark green, and this is bigger, but I'm going to trim it down afterwards. I'm not going to worry about that too much at the moment. What I'm going to do, I don't want it quite as big as this, so I'm just going to cut that in half. I can use the other bit later on for something else. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this sort of hilly looking effect. I'm going to lay that on there like that. So I'm just going to curve that a little bit more because that's a little bit pointed. And that's the beauty of this. It can be whatever you want it to be. So I just snip that bit off there. Just going to fold that back to give me an idea of where to trim it. Oh, that's perfect because there's no bonder web on that bit. So then I'm going to break the back of the bonder web. I think I'm going to get a pin. It works better with a pin. There we are. I should have done that in the first place. Right, so I'm just going to lay that on top. So you can have as much sky or as much green as you want. So you could have a bigger sky if you wanted to, or a smaller sky. It's entirely up to you. And that's the beauty of these little postcards. They're personal to you. They're how you want them to be. And then I've got a lighter green. Now, I've gone through my stash, and that's what I love about doing this. You go through your stash and you find all sorts of bits of fabric that's going to work. And I've got this lovely green with daisies on, something that I bought years ago. And it brings back such happy memories. So I'm just going to trim that down. Again, I've probably got too much of that. But anyway, I'm just going to trim the top and do some more sort of hilly things. I'm going to place that on there like that. Going to trim the bottom because I'm going to put my daffodils on in a minute. I'm just trimming this off because when I take it to the iron, I don't want to end up with bonder web on my ironing mat. And then finally, I've got a piece of fabric, and again, this is a scrap from ages ago. So any fabric that you've got with tiny little spring flowers will work perfectly. So I'm just going to put that on the bottom there. And now I'm going to take that over to the iron and I'm going to press all of that in place. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to tidy up the edges. So I'm going to turn it over so I can see where the edge of my background is, just so I can tidy that up a little bit. So you can see that I've got my scene to start with. Now on this one, you'll notice that I've done some decorative stitching, and I think this is a great opportunity. If you've got a sewing machine that does fancy embroidery stitching, it's a great opportunity to experiment. So I didn't know what this stitch was going to look like, and actually once I'd put it in the hillside, I really like it. So I'm probably going to use this stitch again. So that's the great thing with these. They can be whatever you want them to be and you can experiment with them. So I've got this scene. So I probably will do a bit more embroidery and some stitchery on it. But for the purposes of today, I'm just going to pop some little sheep on it. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So sometimes people say, is there a pattern or is there a template? And I would just encourage you to have a go at just drawing things, because anyone can draw a sheep. It's really, really simple. So I've got a piece of bonder web on some whitey, creamy colour fabric. And all I did was that sort of a shape. Just check. Can you see that? Brilliant. So just that sort of shape is perfect. And then for the sheep's head, all I did was I drew a longer face, and then I did his ears. So they're slightly lopsided, but it doesn't matter because they're not all perfect. So then you cut these out. I haven't even cut these on the line, but I don't think it's going to matter. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just round it off a little bit more. And I'm going to put that here. And then I'm going to cut out. It's a little bit fiddly to do, so I'm actually going to use my other scissors. These are better. Just move that round a bit more, and there we go. Just pop that face on there like that. So all I would do is carry on making those shapes. You might want to do them facing the opposite way. In fact, I think I like that better. So I'm going to do him facing the opposite way. So I'd break the back of the bonder web, and when I'm happy with the placement, I would iron that in place. So you can see that I'm not quite happy with this placement. So I'm just going to curve that edge a little bit more. I think it's a bit pointed. That's better. So I would carry on doing that till I'd got as many sheep as I wanted. And then if I come back to the original one, what I've done is I've marked the little legs on the sheep, and I've used a friction pen. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to put some embroidery stitches, some little black embroidery stitches, to give the illusion of the sheep's legs. So that's my idea for March. So I hope I've inspired you, and I hope you'll make a March postcard. I'd love to see your photos. Let us know what you've chosen and your theme. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of these, because we're going to be doing one every month. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to show you how to put them all together into a wall hanging or a small quilt. So make sure you subscribe so you get to see every month. So as always, have fun. I look forward to seeing you next time here in the Sewing Studio.